We're now going to get you a very special interview right here on Startup Central. It's with serial entrepreneur and the Thai Delhi president, Rajan Anandan. Welcome back, Rajan, to Startup Central. Good to see you again. You've been in New York for a very, very long time. I'm catching you at a Thai Delhi-NCR event. I want to begin by asking you, and I know this is something you're particularly proud of, just the sheer number of entrepreneurs that the NCR, the National Capital Region, boasts of, plus the number of unicorns.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. And we are very, very excited. Today is a very special day. Thai launched the Delhi-NCR Startup Report today, and I must say we are incredibly excited.
So what excites you? Like, what's in the report that stands out?
Yeah, so we undertook a very extensive research. Our research partner is Zinov, to really do two things, right? We had three objectives with our research. First, we wanted to understand the current state of the NCR startup ecosystem. Second, we wanted to identify the biggest opportunities as well as the most significant challenges. And thirdly, we wanted to figure out what we need to be doing as an ecosystem to really turbocharge the ecosystem. I'd say the single biggest finding from this research is the sheer size and scale of the NCR startup ecosystem, right? There are over 7,000 startups in Delhi NCR. That number is significantly higher than any other city in India. Second, we have 10 unicorns, again, the highest number of unicorns across any city in India. And then if you look at the mix of startups, what's very, very interesting is, unlike some other cities, not just in India, but globally, NCR actually has a very broad-based mix of companies, tech and non-tech, consumer internet, as well as, all kinds of other companies, large number of consumer product startups, large number of companies in spaces like financial services and fintech. And finally, actually, if you look at the cumulative private market valuations of startups in Delhi NCR, it's about $50 billion, right? So NCR now accounts for more than 50%, more than half of the private market value of the entire startup ecosystem in India. So I'd say the single biggest takeaway here is NCR has a very large, very vibrant startup ecosystem, and quite frankly, we didn't really have these sets of data points in the past, and I think that's been extremely encouraging to see.
So, Rajan, I've got to ask you this question. Look at the numbers that you're talking about: 7,000 startups, more than 10 unicorns, and the kind of market capitalization and market value and all of that. Not market capitalization. So, having said that, from what you're telling me, Delhi is actually bigger than Bengaluru. That National Capital Region is perhaps the Silicon Valley of India.
I think NCR is the largest startup ecosystem in India, right? As they say, data always sort of tells you the real story. And what's very interesting is, and quite frankly, look, we didn't know, right, how many startups we had. And Thai, as you know, is really our mission is to foster and nurture entrepreneurship, globally. And each of our chapters, so the Thai Delhi NCR chapter, which is this report's coming from, our mandate and our mission is to foster entrepreneurship in NCR. We actually undertook this research because we were really trying to understand and get a much deeper understanding of the ecosystem we're in. Simple things like how many startups do we have, and how many unicorns do we have, and how much funding, and so on and so forth. So actually, we were quite surprised, because I think the narrative that we have across India is quite different, as you said. And yes, I mean, NCR does have the largest startup ecosystem in India.
So can I ask you that, have you spoken with your counterpart of Thai in Bengaluru? What's been the reaction there?
Look, I think what's exciting, by the way, is, at a national level, it's one thing to be, the largest or the second largest, in India, right? I don't think any of us aspire to be the largest in India, right? I think our aspiration as an Indian startup ecosystem is to be the #1 in the world. Right? We're not going to stop at #2 or #3. We're already the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. So I think in many ways, I think the problem definition, or the definition of the challenge, is how do we become the #1 in the world? And I think that's sort of a 5 to 10 year journey. And in many ways, what we've tried to, we've talked about the headline of this research, but one of the things we want to really understand from this research is what are the challenges, right? What are the big areas of focus we need to have to go from, let's say, 7,000 startups. We've set a vision 2025 of 12,000 startups. We want to go from 10 unicorns in NCR to 30 unicorns in NCR by 2025, right? So what we're really now focusing on is, I don't think we should get into this city versus that city in India, right? The whole question really is, how do we make India the number one startup nation in the world? And that's the goal.
So with that goal in mind, how are you looking to turbocharge these startups?
Yeah, so we, as part of this research, and those of you that are interested in the startup ecosystem, I'd really encourage you to download this report. It'll be online in the next hour or so. We've identified, a set of major challenges, right? Firstly, funding at all stages is a challenge. From seed funding to Series A funding is a big challenge. It's a challenge across India, but it's especially quite a bit of an acute challenge in the NCR region. Second, affordable space. Space, especially in the central business districts of Delhi, Gurgaon, and even Noida, are actually very expensive. They're not affordable if you're two co-founders just starting up, right? You'll have to pay 10 to 15,000 rupees per month per seat, and that tends to be quite expensive, especially if you haven't already raised a meaningful round of funding. So space is a big challenge. Third is technical talent, especially in the north. Technical talents, because we don't have as many engineering colleges, we don't have as many computer science graduates. That's an area of concern that we need to address. And then lastly, look, policies, right? I think there are a number of things we can do from a policy standpoint, policies that are driven by not the center, but really by Delhi, by Gurgaon, by Noida, that can make it much more favorable for us to launch, iterate, and build very innovative, interesting kind of companies. And then finally, look, this is not a startup related topic, but when you think about Delhi, when you think about Gurgaon, when you think about Noida, pollution, right, is probably a huge issue for living in this region. And I think it's not a startup related issue, but pollution, traffic and crime are three things that we really need to address. So in the report, we've tried to go very, very deep on identifying the big challenges that we have, and then on recommendations, we've made a number of recommendations on how to address each of these challenges.
So can I ask you what some of those recommendations could be? And let's talk about pollution and traffic, because that's a real problem, whether you're in the National Capital Region or you are in Bengaluru or in Mumbai or even Kolkata.
No, so I think solving traffic and pollution are sort of macro problems. What we've tried to get into in this report are problems that are very specific to startups, right? So the first thing we've recommended is that we focus on 10 priority sectors, right? We've given a lot of thought to what these sectors should be. Each of these sectors is a sector where we believe that NCR can really lead in terms of startups, lead in terms of innovations, where we're seeing a disproportionate number of the successful startups in each of these sectors, right? Be it food and food tech, be it ag tech, be it next generation e-commerce, which is a very, very exciting segment, be it logistics, should actually come from NCR, right? So we've identified 10 of these sectors, and then we've made a number of recommendations of what we should be doing in each of those sectors, right? Straightforward things that lots of other states have done, like building centers of excellence is one, right? Second, having sector-specific sandboxes. So for instance, when you think about, we've identified smart cities as a sort of a sector, horizontal sector where NCR can really lead. And in smart cities, what we've said is, let's set aside a meaningful sort of geographic physical region, what we're calling a physical sandbox. And in that sandbox, let's actually have very progressive regulations, right? That will enable, breakthrough innovations, right? Whether it's in water, whether it's in waste management, whether it's in traffic management, to be launched and iterated without having to, go through, very extensive periods of, regulation change, or, doing things without having a regulatory framework. So that's sort of so 10 sectors. Second, we've sort of said in each of these sectors, we need to have very clear sort of policy, regulatory framework ideas, private-public partnerships. That's sort of the second big bucket. And in the research, we've tried to identify a number of interesting ideas. So for instance, NCR should be the national leader across India, the leader when it comes to mobility as a service. But a simple thing like carpooling is not allowed, right? Let's make sure we have carpooling. For Christ's sake, we don't need more traffic on our roads, but let's make carpooling let's enable that, right? Let's enable sharing on commercial vehicles and a whole set of other things like that. And then finally, in the third set of recommendations are around what we're calling core infrastructure. For instance, we are recommending that Delhi, Gurgaon and Noida have startup hubs, right? World-class infrastructure at very affordable levels. 10,000-seater, one 10,000-seater in Delhi, one in Bangalore, and one in Hyderabad. And these should be modeled behind T-Hub, which is in Hyderabad. I'm sure you've been, some of you who are startup enthusiasts have been to Hyderabad to that. At T-Hub, but at much larger scale, at the scale of NCR, right? And so that, if you're two founders starting up, you don't have to spend months trying to find some space that you can afford, right? For 6,000 or 7,000 rupees a month, you can actually move into a space. It has internet, it has very, very sort of, reasonably world-class infrastructure and so on. The second is on talent. We we actually think that we need to partner with leading Indian as well as global edtech companies that actually have outcome-based programs, right? So there's a company, Sequoia-funded company, in fact, called Interview Bit, that actually they go through a 6-month program, and to become a world-class coder, that you're job ready, that you can go get a job at, let's say, a Google or an Amazon or a Facebook or a hot startup in NCR. And how do we bring those companies and get them to really focus on the NCR region, so that we can start building a lot more talent when it comes to areas like computing, coding, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of a second set of ideas. The third set of ideas really is around funding. We do have a very significant gap in funding, and we made a number of recommendations on how do we get many more angel investors, right? How do we get many more seed funds? How do we get many more venture capital funds? To invest in startups from NCR.
Would that not be location agnostic, Rajan?
Yeah, if you're in a tier 1 venture capital firm, right? So as you know, I recently joined Sequoia. We have offices across the whole country, right? So if you're a pretty large established venture capital firm, you look at companies across the entire country. However, if you look at the angel investor community, the angel investors tend to be pretty local, right? Because it's much easier as an angel investor to meet companies in your area. But Delhi just doesn't have, NCR just doesn't have enough angel investors, right? So we need to do a lot more to get many more of the HNIs who are. I mean, here's a NCR, has 23, 24 million people, and we have millions of HNIs. How do we get many more of them to become angel investors, right? Seed funds also tend to be more local than national. I mean, some of them like Bloom and K, who've been very, very successful, play across the national stage. But how do we get let's say 50 crore, 100 crore, 200 crore funds, new funds to emerge, new fund managers who are actually going to focus specifically on the region? Look, at the end of the day, right, if you go back 15 or 20 years, a lot of the Silicon Valley investors at that stage, things are very, very different in Silicon Valley today. They invested around Silicon Valley, right? This is a very local business in many different ways. So it's important that we actually have, I think the first big priority should be we need to 10x the number of angel investors in NCR, but then we also need to have programs that could encourage many more new funds to emerge who are going to invest, especially in the NCR region. Once you become a larger fund, once you become scale, once you've been around for a long time, obviously you're going to invest across all of India, and that's what firms do. But we think especially for NCR, we made a number of recommendations to accelerate to improve the funding environment for NCR startups.
Okay, so that's a fantastic point you're making. So I also want to ask you, the data that you have put out, have you been able to figure out how many angel investors are actually in the National Capital Region at the moment?
There are only a few hundred active angel investors. So we've looked at data from Let's Venture, from Indian Angel Network, as well as some of the other platforms, and we looked at how many angel investors have made at least one investment over the last 18 months. It's a few hundred. It's only a few hundred, right? And this should be in the thousands. I mean, we should have thousands of angel investors in a vibrant region like NCR. So there's easily potential to 10x the number of active angel investors in the region.
Having said that, so Rajan Anandan, you're on Startup Central. So for all the HNIs that are tuning in at the moment, I'm going to ask this question also on behalf of the entrepreneurs and those that want to mentor founders, etc. Why is becoming an angel investor a good idea? Why is investing in startups as an asset class a good idea?
Look, I think firstly, you should become an angel investor if you're passionate about startups. I think it may not be appropriate to only come into this thinking of it as an asset class, because it's a very risky asset class, right? So I think the reason to become an angel investor is because you love entrepreneurship, you like working with startups, you like investing in them, you like new ideas, you like also you have a pretty high risk tolerance, right? If you don't have a pretty high risk tolerance, angel investing is maybe not a game to be in, right? It's a game where you're going to lose more than you're going to win. So if you don't like failure, you're going to be an unhappy angel investor. So I think most important thing is you've got to have a passion for startups. But from a financial standpoint, let me give you some numbers, right? So just look at NCR. I'm not even looking at India. Just look at NCR. The private market valuation today of all startups in NCR is about $50 billion. And we believe that by 2025, NCR startup ecosystem is going to be worth about $150 billion, right? So $100 billion of value creation over the next 6 or 7 years is going to happen literally, let's call it 20 miles north and 20 miles south of where I'm sitting right now. right? So, you know, that is what's happening, right? I mean, and we've got $10 billion companies today, unicorns, private unicorns. That number is going to go to 30, right? We're going to have thousands of interesting companies that are going to be founded. And what I can tell you, having been active in the ecosystem for a long time, is the quality of the founders that we're seeing, right? In NCR, but also across India, has dramatically improved, right? We are seeing second time, third time founders starting companies. We are seeing, founders who've actually spent many years at some of our unicorns, like Flipkart, like Paytm, like Ola, coming out and actually starting companies, right? They're coming out with experience on how to build fast. They're coming out with deep experience. And this is a very, very exciting time. So I would say, if you are thinking about, where to put some capital, but more importantly, you're thinking about, how to get involved. I mean, it's just a fantastic time to get involved with the startup ecosystem.
So you should only do it if you're passionate, and people can seem to lose a lot of money. Not everyone has a Midas touch like you, Rajan. That's why there is only one Rajan Anandan, right?
No, so look, there are many people who've been a lot more successful at this than I have. But look, I think it's like anything else that you do, right? I mean, you don't play golf because you want a hobby, right? You play golf because you like golf, and then over time you get to be very good at golf. So, angel investing is something, because, look, as an angel investor, a lot of the fun and the thrill and the satisfaction is around seeing entrepreneurs build their companies, right? It's about learning what it takes to, go from 0 to 1, right? And so my point is, look, doing it only for financial reasons may be interesting, and you should co-invest maybe through, and the way to do that would be to invest in other funds, right? There are a lot of funds that are actually raising money, lots of them that have been very, very successful in India. So you could invest in those funds. But if you're going to become an angel investor, meaning angel investors by definition are angels, right? So they put a lot of risk capital, they're there for their companies, they try to help out as they can, and that requires some level of time commitment. But what I can tell you is, if you do it with focus and you do it over a long period of time, it can be very, very interesting, right? $100 billion of value is going to get created in the next 6 or 7 years, literally in this small area that we're sitting in here in Delhi.
Okay, and Rajan, since I have you on Startup Central, I just want to ask you, you've come back from New York after a long time, I'm getting you back on the channel. Any interesting startups or any startups that have caught your eye, even if they're particularly from the National Capital Region or Pan-India or whatever?
Yeah, look, I think I just got back and started a new role, so we should connect back in some time, and I'll tell you about what's new and interesting.
I wasn't asking for Sequoia investments. I'm not asking what you might be putting in money. I'm just asking about Rajan Anandan, who mentors startups, any interesting founders he's met with, any interesting startups that he's seen.
Look, every day, in my role, especially now, every day I'm meeting lots of interesting founders, right? What I can tell you is, what impresses me more than anything else about our Indian startup ecosystem, now I want to move beyond just NCR, but the Indian startup ecosystem is founder quality has dramatically improved, right? I think every single month that goes by, the quality of the founders is improving dramatically. So I don't want to give you a name. I'll do that next time I see you. But founder quality has just dramatically improved.
Okay, with that, Rajan, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out for joining us here on ET Now. And of course, you've promised that interview in your new role. So we look forward to getting that interview soon.
Absolutely, we'll do that very soon. Thank you.